Welcome to our Brackla Tabernacle online content this week. Trust you've survived it in what has been like the hottest week imaginable. So congratulations, we're still here. Trust you've been okay. We're going to read from God's Word, the Bible, in a moment from the book of Mark, chapter 10. And then later on, I'll try and unpack it a little for us in the context of a really important week for us as Brackla Tabernacle, as we lean in to some things that we're changing in order to keep on progressing as a church family. But before that, really important, let's read together from the Bible, Mark chapter 10, verse 35 to 45. If you have Bibles, you'd be really, really wise to grab them and to pause this, to flick to this passage, and let's go through it together. It says this: Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. In other parts of the Gospels, in Matthew's Gospel, it says that they were accompanied by their mother. If there's not one thing, it's your mother, and so James and John were there with their mother. And it says, "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." "You don't know what you're asking," Jesus says. "Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared." When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exert and exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must become your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." That, my friends, is the word of God. A few weeks ago, I was in Malawi. I visited there along with Mark Chenery and Stuart Wood, who both serve in leadership capacities within the overseas mission part of Brackla Tabernacle's denominational church family, the Apostolic Church. We visited Malawi to oversee the ending of the tenure of our residential missionaries there, Alan and Sandra Skeen, who've been serving the Lord there for 22 years. And to make the Malawian Apostolic Church autonomous, self-governing, self-ruling, all their leadership, financial decisions made there, brilliantly so. These were great moments. It's a great story. I visited Malawi as a slip of a lad 22 years ago when Alan and Sandra had first arrived. I witnessed Alan being ordained as an apostle and released in his superintendent ministry covering the nation of Malawi. And so 22 years later, as they end, I was asked to return and represent the entirety of the Apostolic Church UK to say thank you and well done. What a privilege. The Apostolic Church in Malawi started in a remarkable way. A group of about 5 or 6 small churches had come across a pamphlet about the Apostolic Church, its desire to belt the globe with the mission of the gospel, and its teaching on the person of Jesus through his church with gifts of apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. This small number of Malawian Christians were stirred by this very simple leaflet. They wanted to find out more. On the reverse of it was a name and address: Pastor D. Thomas, Apostolic Church, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. And so they decided to write to Pastor Thomas and invite him to come and share with them what the Apostolic Church is and how they could learn more. Now remember, friends, this was about 4 decades ago. The letter was not sent via Royal Mail, DHL, courier, special delivery. Instead, it was literally written and put in the hands of someone who travelled to the next village and put it in the hands of someone else, who put it in the hands of someone else. And eventually, this letter went hand to hand, village to village. It travelled about 1,000 kilometres through 3 countries, and it took 12 months before it finally landed on the desk of Pastor D. Thomas, the Apostolic Church, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. Danny visited Malawi 22 times, and the Apostolic Church was established. There are now over 250 churches, thousands of people have come to know Jesus, and it all happened when a letter was sent. Only God could do that. And God, in his brilliance, does those miraculous things by inviting people to partner with him. He invites people to partner with him. And when a servant says yes to this master, miraculous things take place. We just read from Mark chapter 10, and we're going to pick out some things now, which is mirrored in Matthew's Gospel too. The account tells us of James and John hustling for position. They want the best seats in the house, a bit like the Tory party candidates, jostling with one another for position. They say this outrageous line, "Teacher," which in this context means more than the person standing at the front of a classroom. It means the person I'm willing to learn from, submit to, subject my understanding to what they say and do. Teacher, we want you to do what we ask. You, person from whom we are learning, you do what we want. Their request is one of position and authority. It says, we'd like to sit in a place of glory, a place of authority on your right and on your left when you are glorified. When you take up your position as sort of ruler, which is what they thought he was about to do, we'd like to shine, we'd like to bask in some of your light. So can we sit really close on your right and your left in these positions of authority? It would be like, I don't know, in the Queen's Jubilee a few weeks ago, on the balcony scene when Her Majesty comes out to wave. It'd be like us going and saying, one of us, any chance that we can come and sit on the balcony with you? Do a little wave at the adoring crowds? No, it doesn't work like that. Those things are done by invitation. And that's what Jesus says. It doesn't work like that to the Queen, and it certainly doesn't work like that in the kingdom of Jesus. This collective community where Jesus himself influences, rules, brings change throughout everywhere this kingdom touches. It seems, doesn't it, that James and John have the wrong end of the stick when it comes to their understanding of what happens when you get close to Jesus. The next part of the story underlines that even more, because Jesus says to them, look, it isn't for you to ask these things, and it's not even for me to give. You have no idea what you're asking, he says. Because he goes on to underline and ask them a question. Can you drink the cup that I'm going to and be baptized in the way that I am? Now, some of that sounds great. If you're a Christian or if you've been around church for a while, you know that baptism is usually a really joyful thing. That when you become a follower of Jesus, you get baptized. There are some people in our church who have done that recently. That you get down into a pool of water, get fully immersed in it as a sign of what's happened to you. That something that was old has been buried and something that was dead has been brought to life. You go down and you come out. Baptism sounds great, as does cup, particularly in this last week. Anyone wants a cup of something cool and refreshing. And so the brothers here say, yes, of course we can, Jesus. Bring it on. But just like before, Jesus' perspective is very different. Just like the seats of authority, which we'll come back to, Jesus is talking about not a hooray moment, everything's going to be great, why didn't you come and do this? He's sort of talking about almost the opposite. Because the context Jesus is talking is in the entirety of Jewish history, the Old Testament. And a cup or the cup would often refer to not something brilliant, but actually God's wrath. His real anger at something that isn't right, and his determination to do something about it. We get angry at stuff all the time, don't we? Some of it really important, some of it not so important. And God's not like that. He doesn't blow hot or cold depending on his mood. depending on how much he's eaten. He doesn't get hangry. He doesn't change. He is always in joy. And so his wrath is really important to understand. He's really angry about stuff that isn't right. God, the Bible tells us, is intensely angry at sin, at the ignoring of God's best. Not because he gets offended that we're ignoring him, but because he knows the devastation that sin-filled choices will bring about and do bring about. And so the cup is God's wrath being poured out. That anger to change things and to judge things. It could be on a nation or a person. Ultimately, of course, the Bible tells us that Jesus himself drinks that cup. Jesus on his cross stands in the gap for the guilty and takes God's cup of wrath at the cross on himself. Jesus takes the rightful punishment of a rightly angry God to an unholy world. Jesus takes it on our behalf. And baptism is the same. Not in this context something to rejoice at, but here the forceful, under the water condemnation of something. Jesus takes it on our behalf. So James and John says, bring it on, of course, sounds great. But Jesus says, okay, you will, but because I'll do it first. So what's happening? Because these aren't people that just comes across Jesus for the first time and say hello. These are people who've been with him for a few years. They really know him. And yet they seem to be still all over the place when it comes to some really important things. They think that knowing Jesus, being a Christian, having a label might bring with it some really good benefits for them. Well, I can get to sit in a place of authority. Now that's quite in your face, but in subtle ways, they are saying that we expect that for all this following of Jesus, we should get something out of it, surely. You know, I surely could get a bit more comfortable. Not many bad things should happen to me. I get a bit more secure, a few less problems, because I'm now cozy with Jesus. So it might be kicking off over there, but over here it's all fine. Following Jesus surely brings with it some personal benefit. Otherwise, what's the point? Following Jesus does. But those benefits are received and achieved not in the way that they, or sometimes we, think. Verse 41 tells us that the others become indignant with James and John. Great word. It means feeling or showing anger at something that is perceived as being unfair or unworthy. They're getting angry with these brothers because their request, could we sit in the places of authority, stuff the rest of them, is like unfair and unworthy. Who the heck do these guys think they are? And that anger is felt very often in how we speak or what we do, and Jesus sees this, and it says that he calls them all together. It comes together for a big showdown. And he shows them what the world does. He says, look around us with the Gentile rulers that are obvious, the Roman rulers that are in office, and look what power does. The world honours those that are in power, and the powerful lord it over people. Because authority is often corrupted and power shown to bring advantage to the powerful at the expense of the weak. Now, I said I was in Malawi earlier. Blantyre Airport in Malawi is horrific. It is a classic place to see corrupted power. Someone, usually in a uniform, has power to allow you on or off a plane. And when you're travelling, that's a relatively important thing to do. We were ushered from one desk to another, asking questions all over the shop just because uniformed people told us to. My friend Mark, who I travelled with the last time he was in that airport, was found as a guard was rifling through his stuff, was asked, "Do you have any money?" Mark said, "No, I don't." And the guard stopped looking through his stuff, pointed to the wall and said, "Go and stand over there." And so Mark did, and he ushers others through. Keep coming. Looks 5 minutes later, "Do you have any money?" "No, I don't." "Stay there." More people come through. Mark's just standing there waiting, time-ticking plane about to take off. The uniformed officer, was looking for some money to make this process a bit easier and smoother so Mark could be let through quicker. Power often corrupts, my friends. Jesus brings his group together to say, lads, you're following me now. You're following me. You're no longer following the world system, which seeks to applaud you every time your focus, your ambition, your desire is on you. Come on, what makes you happy? Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you feel good about yourself. Your choices matter. Like, your will be done. Your kingdom come. Jesus says that belief and behavior, my friends, it'll ruin you, because it was never meant to be like that. It ruins you and hurts others when you are king of your own life. In my kingdom, Jesus is saying, we turn that on its head. If you're in my kingdom, then you advance and grow and enjoy it and live by doing the opposite of what you're being championed with in the world. So instead of lording it over, thinking it's all about you and enjoying that place, instead of that, you serve others. And want to know why and how? He says, for even the Son of Man, Jesus himself, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. We'll get to service in a moment, but first let's look at why. Jesus is our why. Jesus is our why. There's a business book on my bookshelf which says start with why, because when you can convince people about the why, the how becomes a lot more obvious. Why on earth should I serve people? Jesus is our why. And Jesus, he says here, didn't come to be served, though he could have been. He throws the values of this world on their head and shows that in serving uniquely, people are set free. He talks about a ransom. A ransom was a payment made to release slaves or prisoners or convicts. It brought them from their lowly position up to one of equality. They received redemption by the payment of a ransom. They were set free. They were redeemed. Jesus is saying that by taking the cup that he talks about, by his unique baptism, his unique service, he was going to pay a ransom to set people free. And that modus operandi, that way of working, of operating, has not changed in the kingdom of Jesus. It is the way of Jesus. Serving others brings freedom for them and for me. Freedom for what? Well, from pride. Let me sit on a throne where I can stay away from all you scumbags down there. I'm sitting up by Jesus. I'm not stacking chairs or cleaning toilets or lifting a finger for someone else unless I want to, unless I get something out of it that adds to my feeling of self-worth and self-importance. Because though I might not say it, I feel it, I'm better than you. Pride. Serving people sets us free from pride by helping us get better acquainted with the great virtue, humility. Freedom from self-centeredness. If you know a selfish person, chances are you'll have noticed one of their characteristics is a lack of gratitude. You'll rarely hear them say thank you. They're self-obsessed because it's all about them. And that is such a dangerous place to be. My friend, serving others frees you from the temptation to always think about you. And very often, you are the last person you want to think about. I know what goes on in here, and I'm delighted to leave him well alone. Serving people frees us from our self-preoccupation and helps us be better acquainted with the great virtue of gratitude. Freedom from pride, freedom from self-centeredness, freedom from sloth. Not the animal, but laziness. Our world is tempting us to live in a life of absolute ease. Everything's click at a button. You don't even need to go out for dinner. Click a button, it'll be brought to you. Where the dream is to live on a permanent holiday. That's why we all long for retirement. No work, no labour, but God knows that labour, right labour, good work is good for us. For our mental well-being, our emotional health, and not to disturb us, and to disturb us rather from the desire of laziness. Serving others keeps us labouring well, healthily. It frees us from sloth by helping us become better acquainted with for labour we were born to be involved with. So freedom from pride, selfishness and sloth, and freedom to love and live. When you serve others, you can love more and be loved more. You get to live a little more because you're entering into the characteristics of Jesus' kingdom, where it is more blessed to give than receive. It shouldn't make sense, but it does, and it's true when Jesus is our why. And so if you're in the kingdom and you want to advance in it, grow in it, know in it, live in it, love it, then follow the King and become more like the King, and that is by serving others. And so, my friends, at the end of all of this, how are you doing on that one? How good are you at serving others? We in this church family want to be a place, a community, a family where God is known, and that must involve serving. And I'm so proud to belong to this family. I don't know where you're watching this. You might be in Bridgend and you might belong to us and you just can't be with us in person today. I'm so proud to belong to this church where there is loads of service taking place in loads of ways. And we want to celebrate and honour and praise and rejoice that the kingdom of God is amongst us. We're seeing it and it is brilliant. Now, there's a corporate life of church, the organised bits, and an organic life of our church family, the personal bits. And in both of those areas, we want to champion serving because Jesus is our why. And so from today, on our website, bracklatabernacle.org/teams, there is a whole list of areas within our corporate church life that we can serve in. And I'd like each of us to take a look. And then I'd like each of us to take a look and then click on the areas that we'd either like to be involved in or we could contribute to. They may be because of a desire that we have, a talent that does lay dormant, or something that we're good at. All of these areas are a tiny bit of our corporate areas of church life that we need to be serving together in, that will make the whole of us better. So take a look, click on and sign up. This is Sign Up Sundays, not for small groups like we do in the past, but to become more like Jesus, the one who came to serve, to set people free. Many of these teams on our website have nothing to do with Sundays. That's the point. Church is more than Sunday, more than just one gathering. They're to do with the wholeness of our church family life. And so that happens occasionally or regularly. But there are some teams, and there are some teams that exist to help make Sundays happen too, because Sundays are really important. They are the gathered times when we're all together. And I encourage you again that if you're not gathering in person when you can, then you should. Because just like Sunday, like a roast meal for a family, a party or Christmas, Sundays are like that. They're moments when we all get together as family. Sometimes we allow that familiarity to breed contempt because we get to get these get-togethers all the time. We have them every week. How good is that? And we take them for granted. So for these family times to happen, these all-ins, well, serving each other is vital. A healthy family doesn't have a big meal or a party or a celebration where one person does everything. Buys the food, cooks the food, cleans up, does it all. No, that is not a healthy family. A healthy family has everyone involved. Some of those things might be really skilled. You don't want me to cook the meat, but I can stack plates, stack the table and load the dishwasher. My friends, we get to do that every week. And so the expectation of this church is that service rises. It is the expectation, if you belong to Brackla Tabernacle, we serve each other. And so I'm asking you please to click, have a look, sign up for a team. If you're a member of this church, you've already agreed to follow Christ in this church family, here's an opportunity. Jesus is our why. And I reckon loads of us will, thank you. Because if Jesus is your why, then why not? Serving will be a part of setting you and keeping you free from pride and selfishness and sloth. 3 things that cannot be present in the heart of a disciple of Jesus and cannot be present here. And so our desire is that everyone in this church is in at least one of these teams. Every leader will be, or they won't be on leadership. Our expectation is that every single one of us signs up and gets involved. And if not, why not? Because, my friends, until you can't, you can. Let me say briefly to some of you who can't, that I want you to know that if you can't, this is still your church. And if you can't, then this family will care for, love, and help you enjoy and be a genuine part of this church family in every way possible. I made mention before about my grandfather-in-law, who was, until he passed away, 92 years old, and gets to a stage in his life when he can't. Age, illness, and the circumstances of life can stop us often from serving others for a season, or sometimes even for good. He was 92 years old. He couldn't stack chairs or move benches or pour tea. He was shot. But he had said to his pastor, look, pastor, I can't do lots of things, but I can still pray, and I can still give my money to obey Christ and see resources put into the hands of leadership. So I'll do that. And he did. And so even when you can't, my friends, so often we can. We are expectant of that. And so in order for our church to function in the way that it will in the future, this cultural moment, this clear expectancy from our leadership to us all determines and defines us. We will love each other. Will we be our brother's keepers? Will we serve? And that involves all of us. If you're in secondary school upwards, you can be involved in this family, in serving. Why? Because Jesus, the one who challenges our understanding of how to get on well, that it isn't about what I can get out of it, but what I can plough into it. Jesus, the one who didn't come to be served, although he's worthy of it, but to serve, to set us all free. He calls us to turn from our self-destruction, our pride, our self-centeredness and sloth, to believe in him, to follow him, and to become like him by the great power of the Holy Spirit. We get to serve each other. And so please click on our website, have a look, sign up. And my desire is that by the end of the week, we are inundated with what to do. Because we've got lots of change coming. We want everyone to be involved. I was present somewhere recently where 40 years ago, God took a letter to start a church movement because he had found people willing to serve. I wonder whether or not he will find that here in this church family. We'll find it in you. We'll find it in me. Jesus comes to set us